Hey everybody, welcome back to our neck of the woods. And for Vlogmas day 2, as you can see, we are outside in the backyard. It is gun season for 1 week here in Ohio, and it is Monday, day number 1. So of course, first one out in the field. Last couple nights, seeing what time they move. Usually it's early in the morning and before the sun goes down, or just after the sun goes down. So we'll just see what we see. What we're doing here today in Ohio is again, we've got 1 week of gun season, and then we'll have a couple days of gun season like later in December or early January, and then we'll have several days of muzzle loader. And that's usually just what I do. I don't usually participate in any archery. It's just easier for me distance wise, knockdown power wise. I think it's safer for the animal. Not to mention, I don't want to hit a deer with an arrow and then have it run a couple hundred yards away, and then I've got to go knock on everybody's door and get permission to go into their property to track it. And it's just easier to me, I think, in my opinion. Just the knockdown power of a gun or rifle just usually works best. Now, speaking of rifle, here in Ohio, we're actually not allowed rifle, and what I mean by that is usually a rifle caliber like this guy right here. This is an 8mm Mauser, which my grandfather's rifle that he passed down to me actually is a German Mauser 8mm that he had converted into like a traditional hunting stock, nice like walnut light color, polished and stained hunting rifle. But that's what he used in Pennsylvania. Anyway, what I mean by rifle round is rifle rounds have this tapering right here at the neck, and that usually creates a much higher velocity, longer distant, more accurate type of round. But here in Ohio, that is illegal during hunting season. And usually just for whitetail. We're allowed to use rifles in Ohio for any sort of varmint, coyote, wild boar, all that type of stuff. You just can't use them during hunting season because, you know, you go ahead and miss an animal or a deer or something, and that round travels, you know, hundreds of yards, possibly into your neighbor who's up in a tree stand. They don't want you hitting them. During like coyote and wild boar that you can hunt all year long, day and night, you can go ahead and use a rifle, like even an AR-15 or a 5.56 223 round, because there's no one else out in the woods really. Obviously you can coordinate with your neighbors to make sure you're not all out there at the same time, because that opposes the same problems during hunting season. But with hunters out in the woods in the middle of winter during gun season, there's just so much more probability that you can hit somebody. So rifle rounds are illegal. They want big old fat slow rounds that only go a couple hundred yards, and then they just drop like a stone and they just don't carry on. Now, what I've typically used when I have hunted is this little guy. I usually like the Winchester Super X. It's a 3-inch long slug. It's a 1-ounce piece of lead, and usually when they impact, they flatten out like a mushroom and go from like, you know, a 1/2 inch out to 1 inch and can create a ton of damage. And these 3-inchers, I think, are almost like 1,800 feet per second. So it's a hell of a round, but unfortunately, even the deer that I've taken with my shotgun, they don't die instantly. You usually have to come up on them and put them down, or just wait it out, and I just don't think it's that humane. I've also missed deer with a shotgun because usually shotguns are smooth barreled. They don't have any rifling to create that twist for the bullet. And even though the slugs do have rifling on them themselves, and they're in a plastic wad that will help try to rotate it out, you just don't really have that great distance, in my opinion. And then again, they fall really fast because it's just not that accurate of a round. And when I missed a deer 1 year with a shotgun, I was like, that's it, I'm done. I don't want to do shotgun anymore. I've got to find a rifle that actually works. Now, they do make rifles that don't have rifled rounds. They have smooth-walled cartridges, which means the entire length of the brass is all completely smooth. and the barrel does have rifling, so they can be really big, fat, heavy rounds, but that rifling and the speed that they can travel is just so much better than a shotgun. And I've had very good luck putting down deer, I mean down and out before they ever hit the ground. They're not even moving, and I've just been extremely happy with moving up to a rifle caliber. And if most of you are wondering, you know, what would that be? Well, the 4570 government is probably the most common, but when I was looking for a rifle to use, I went onto Hornady's website and I compared two very popular rounds for smooth walled cartridges, and that was the 4570 government and the 444 Marlin, which that's actually what I did end up going with. As you can see, again, smooth wall, but a massive round that goes all the way into here, that some of these little pills are almost like 300 grains in weight. That's a far cry difference than, say, like a 5.56 AR-15 that you may only get like 55 grain bullet. So we're talking a much heavier bullet. But the 44 Marlin on paper just looks so much better for trajectory, speed, and even some kinetic energy, because it's lighter and faster at certain distances. On paper, it just looked better than the 4570 government. So I did actually end up going with the 444 Marlin. And again, it's just been an amazing round. I have hit several deer, again, down and out before they ever hit the ground. They didn't take one step. They just instantly dropped. And these Hornadies, as you can see, they're hollow points. They got this little plastic tip in there, but when that thing expands, it just must cause some crazy damage on the inside to drop them one shot, and they don't even move. So that's just been my preferred round of choice. And as for my weapon, in Ohio, you're not allowed any more than 3 rounds in a gun. My shotgun holds 8 rounds, so to go with 3-inch and to lose 1 on capacity doesn't matter anyway, because I can't put legally more than 3 in the gun when you're out hunting anyway. So 3-inchers, 3 at a time, are not really taking up any space because there's still room left. But as for what I use, this is a Harrington and Richardson breech load, meaning it breaks down right here. You can only put 1 round in the gun anyway, 1 at a time, but it's very quick and easy loading. Obviously, as you can see, you can put a rifle scope on it. This one happens to go up to a ×9, and it goes down to a ×4 power, and it's a Bushnell. And I think this is an 18-inch barrel, but this thing has just been absolutely amazing. 100+ yards with ease, 200-300 if you really wanted to push it. The scope is more than enough to do it, and the round will have a lot of drop, but it is definitely doable, more than I would ever want to go out with a shotgun and try and take down a deer with. And yeah, it's just a cheap, easy setup. Again, this is called the Henry rifle from Harrington and Richardson. Only a couple $100. The scope only a couple $100, so really cheap and affordable that you can go out for your first time and get something that, again, will be accurate and will definitely do the job. Now, I don't think I'm gonna get demonetized for this video because we're really not showing anything, but it will be interesting that if I do get a deer this week, I don't know if butchering it will be allowed, probably not, but we can at least go through the process of, you know, once we take one down, you've got to gut it. Then we usually let it hang for a few days before we take it to the processor. But we do have a processor here locally that we can take it to. But I also want to call my dad and see what his game plan is, because he's part of a hunting and fishing club. We've got a cabin down south that has about 70 acres, and there's just hundreds of acres around us. And again, whole big group of guys get together and go down for all of this week, muzzleloader, and the 2 days of gun season later in the month. And it's just one of those special places. If you have one of those, if you've ever experienced it, when you're growing up, you can't go hang out with a bunch of guys who are just drinking and doing everything else throughout the week, and then going out in the daytime and hunting. But it's kind of off limits as a kid. But then when you get up into like middle school, high school, and you're like, oh yeah, I get to go for my first time, it really is a special place. And it's just awesome to go down there. I absolutely love the cabin, and maybe we can take you guys down there one day. But it is part of his hunting and fishing club, and Usually we can get a lot of deer, not all the time. They seem to be getting more scarce down there, at least during the week, because there's so many people out in the woods. But I would love to go down there, since we can do some more traveling than just what I have here on my property, for just the acres and the fields that are behind me and in front of me. Now, one other thing, as for people who may not like hunting, I am not a trophy hunter. I was not raised that way. I am raised for hunting for meat. To me, it's the best meat that you can get, because it's pretty much the only organic meat that you can get, or at least be assured that it's organic. I mean, they're literally out here just eating the grass and everything on your property. Maybe the corn and stuff, which isn't organic, you know, during corn season, before it falls down or gets cut down. But it's good quality meat that you don't have to worry about. You don't have to be scared of where it came from. You know where it came from. And again, I'm not a trophy hunter. I have taken down bucks before, yes, but if there's a big enough doe or a big enough like yearling or something, I will be more than glad to take that and to be able to put meat on my table, and not some just massive rack to hang on a wall. That's just not the way that I was raised. And just a little tidbit of information here. Ohio last year took down 194,000 deer during hunting season, and that's not even including, you know, ones that are diseased, hit by cars, starve to death or freeze to death, etc. That's just legal hunters and not illegal poaching. That's legal hunters that actually turn them in. 194,000. I think the average in Ohio is probably around, you know, 180 to 190,000 every single year. So to the people who are against hunting, think about that. Imagine 194,000 deer that were not taken. Every one of them possibly having more babies and more babies and more babies. You can just imagine what that can do on driving home from work at 3 in the morning and 20 deer run out in front of you, or driving down the highway, going south that way. There's no street lights on our highways. It's pitch black. You can imagine how many more deaths and traffic accidents and millions of dollars in damage that deer could potentially impose if they were not regulated on their population control. So again, you can hate me for hunting or think badly about it, but in my opinion, it is a population control again, and it's just good quality meat that you can put on your table and freeze for the next year. And it's readily available and cheap for the cost of just a deer tag, as opposed to in Ohio, you actually don't need a license if you're hunting on your own property. I will, obviously, if I go off property or to someone else's property. Even if I'm given permission, I cannot go without a license. But for just a couple dollars for a deer tag, and with what possibly could be happening with meat and stuff coming up this winter, I guess is supposed to get pretty bad because of diesel prices over this past year, the feed and the tractors and everything to create food, and again, grain and meat and everything like that, prices, I guess, are just supposed to go up really high. So this is just a very cheap and easy way to be able to feed your family. And again, it's just what me and my family have been doing for generations. So guys, I'm gonna get back to it. I'm gonna see if anything's moving out here in the wood this morning. If not, we'll wait till sundown, and then again, we've got all week, and I'll head up my dad and see what his game plans are. But until then, I will see you guys next time. Wish me luck and take care.